Thea's mission is to provide that fashion and technology are really soulmates, and she tries to bring that to life. And it's really a valiant effort on her part, bringing some really wonderful things to life. Now, previously, she conducted research in human-computer interaction for Wearables at MIT Media Lab, and has been involved in a number of startups ranging from education to fashion to the oil and gas industry. It's with great pleasure that I welcome to the stage, and please put your hands together for Thea.
This is the bag that we were talking about. I'm going to point to it at some points, but for the most part, I wanted to start off the presentation because this is a wearables workshop. I kind of wanted to get into the idea of what smart connected objects really are and really what this concept of wearables really means. The thing that I wanted to go through is, okay, what is a smart object? What is the anatomy of a smart object? And the first thing, obviously, because it is an object, is that it's physical. There are mechanical components, there are electrical components. It is still an object. The second aspect of it is that it's smart. There are microprocessors. There might be sensors embedded inside, things that make it intelligent. And then you have the aspect of connectivity. So it's no longer an object that remains stagnant and works within itself, but it communicates to this thing called the cloud. There are servers out there that our object can now communicate to. So now they're transferring information. And so the concept of a smart object really comes from the fact that it has these computers and systems integrated inside, but also it starts talking. So for example, in the concept of charging your devices, right? We have phones that used to last us a week, and we said, let's innovate and make them smarter. We can now tap screens, we can, basically have mini computers in our pockets. And these mini computers are lasting maybe a day. How many of you guys charge your phone at least once a day? How many do it more? Are you guys bloggers? They're always on their phones. So there's a cycle there that's endless, because the more power we have, the more ways we find in which we can use that power. And so the concept behind John Liu is really that, how can we make that simpler? How can we solve a problem in fashion through technology? What's happening is that you have batteries that are increasing in terms of technological prowess, if you will, but not quickly enough in comparison to other features. So we might have screens that are outrageously crisp and concise with the graphics, but the batteries aren't catching up. And so we have this gap in energy need, and again, it goes back to this cycle of, anything we keep producing, we keep finding ways in which we use it. So when I thought about the product development, when I thought about how I created the 314 over here, it had to be a solution that was seamless and invisible. It couldn't be something that, would change user behavior. And I wanted something to come close to the perfect solution as possible. And the perfect solution would be if our phones never run out of battery, right? But that's highly unlikely. If we can get as close as possible to that solution, then we have something that we can talk about. And so the concept behind the 314 really was a bag that could charge your devices, but which you didn't need to plug in. You didn't need to think about it any more than just putting in your phone into your purse. And that works because we have advances in power technology, and so you have a product that essentially takes the components of a luxury handbag made in Italy, suede, handcrafted edges, the entire concept of fashion handbags, blended with the concept of innovative technology. What's the best technology out there? And that happened to be new technology coming out of MIT. And so we have a product now that can charge your iPhone 6 for one entire month. You never need to plug it in, and you never need to charge it. You just simply put your phone in and go about your day.
Our next speaker here this evening is someone I think we're all looking forward to hear from, a gentleman by the name of Jack Young from Qualcomm, a wearable leader. Fitbit was one of Jack's investments, in fact. So please help me welcome to the stage Mr. Jack Young.
Next, it's going to happen is, obviously, you're here to talk about wearable electronics, and most people believe that this is the next generation computing. Now, think about the wearables, all kinds of wearables we talked about. We just saw the bags. Obviously, I'm wearing one of those, and people are wearing wearable clothing. So most people believe that by the time the wearable become popular, it'll be more than 6 billion. How many billion there will be? Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 10, right? So it's going to be a huge industry, and it's going to be all kinds of wearables get into our life. People talk about wearable today. I talk about wrist format wearable, the smart watches, the trackers. How many of those things actually we're replacing? So that is a question, right? So few people are wearing watches, and there's very few functions that you're actually using for watches, right? How many people are actually using the watches, look at the time. Maybe the watch is it's a sentimental value that your grandfather handed to you and whatnot. But anyway, so that presents a question that is wearable really going to take off? Allison obviously did a very good job. She's been sporting one of those Tory Burch bangles with her, right? So this is one of the attempts that try to fuse a wearable with a fashion accessory. So it turns out when they first came out, it was demand was so strong that I was told that in that price category, Tory Burch sold out everything in 24 hours. In fact, it was the best-selling device in that price category. This is a really popular device. What I really talked about is this 4 Zs, right? The Zolo comes in and says, I'm going to mobilize it, I'm going to organize it, and analyze it, and finally catalyze it. So if I can get all those things too, I hope the wearable is not going to be ending your joys. You'll be playing game the whole day, you'll be earning monies all the time, every time you walk, you have smiles all the time. So that's where the world is going.
Now help me welcome to the stage a gentleman by the name of Daniel Obodowski, author of The Silent Intelligence.
Wearable Wednesday is a very, very cool event that started in San Francisco and now kind of spreading around the world. So, and it's organized by an organization called Wearable World, and actually I believe Thea's is part of it, which they combine a bit technology accelerator. They also have a bit of a consulting. They have a bit of a media company. So they're kind of a driving force behind the wearable technology proliferation. And at that party, you could see all kinds of people, young entrepreneurs, and male and female, wearing all kinds of wearable technology on themselves. They had the wearable bands, they had watches, fitness tracking devices, whatnot. So it's kind of all looked stylish. You had some beautiful models there. You had entrepreneurs. You had corporate executives. And pretty much who is who in the wearable technology world. You had like Google, Samsung were there. You had Jawbone, Fitbit, Misfit, Pebble, and everybody else. And it felt like you're at the beginning of the next technology revolution. It felt like that's where it's all happening. But having said that, you know, looking at all this, I couldn't help but think that in 5 or 10 years from now, we're going to look at all those devices and find them utterly ridiculous. We're going to, you know, we're going to really make fun of them because they look very geeky today. They do, if you think about it. It's like, you know, today when we look at some of the shows from the 60s and 70s. Can we look at the next slide, please? And the next slide. Yeah, so you know when you look at the shows in the 60s and 70s and you ask yourself, did people really used to dress like this? So in the same thing, maybe like 10, 15 years from now, somebody is going to put a TV show and look at our times and portray people wearing those crazy things on their heads, you know, and have those huge watches, bulky watches, and everything else, and things sticking out of their ears. Can we go to the next slide, please? Instead of being stylish, because by that time, hopefully, the technology will be embedded in our clothes, maybe even in our bodies in form of the contact lens. It will become a lot more stylish, will become a lot more natural. It will kind of go into the background instead of being on the forefront. Can we look at the next one? So we look a little bit less like half robots and a little bit more like humans in a little bit more natural way. And that's where I believe the fashion industry really can make a difference. Because we can start, that's where the fashion designers working together with technologists can think about designing new types of technology that helps us on the way. Maybe it's going to be jewelry. Maybe it's going to be part of our clothes. Maybe it's going to be something else. Maybe it's going to be in shoes. Can we go to the next slide? The best technology is the one that disappears. The best technology is the invisible technology. The one we don't really have to spend time reading manuals and figuring out what it does or spend too much time monitoring. The best technology that completely goes into the background and does intuitively what it's supposed to do, instead of getting us distracted all the time.